Hello, everybody.
Hey, Virginia.
Hey, guys.
Hey, Virginia.
And Mr. Chair, we are live.
Hey, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Richard Niebuhr. I'm the acting chair of the Appropriations Committee for Northborough. Tonight, this open meeting of the Appropriations Committee is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, the town of Northborough has been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings. And as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. All members of the Appropriations Committee are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely, along with all staff, the school committees, our chief of police, and our fire chief this evening. This order allows the Appropriations Committee to meet entirely remotely, so long as a reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda. Members of the public who wish to view this and stream this meeting may do so by going to the Northborough remote meetings on YouTube via the link listed in the agenda. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will not feature public comment. Now I will confirm the members present tonight. I will start with the Appropriations Committee. If you say aye when I call your name. George Brinkle.
Aye.
Bob D'Amico. Bob has not checked in with us yet tonight. Janice Height.
Aye.
Anthony Petit.
Aye.
Myself, Rick Niebuhr, aye. Now we have the town staff. We have John Kadir, our town administrator. John.
Present. Present.
And going by order of our agenda, I'll call our school committee, the superintendent of the Assabet Regional Vocational High School, Ernest Houle. Ernest with us.
Just need to unmute yourselves, guys, and just say you're present.
Present.
And we have Chris Leoto, the assistant superintendent of Assabet.
Present.
And Virginia Sims George, the chair of the district school committee and the Northborough representative to Assabet.
Present.
And we have our chief of police, William Liver,
Present.
and our fire chief, and our host tonight for the Zoom broadcast, Chief David Parenti.
Present.
And that, have I missed anyone?
Nope.
That accounts for everyone present and who will be speaking later at tonight's meeting. The first item on our agenda is the approval of the minutes of last week, February 25th. And do I have a motion to accept the minutes as written?
So moved.
Seconded.
Dennis Height made a motion to approve the minutes, and who was the second?
Tony Petit.
Tony. Okay, Tony made second. We now have a motion and a second to accept the minutes. All in favor? As I go through the list again, please say aye. George Brinkle.
Aye.
Janice Height.
Aye.
Anthony Petit.
Aye.
Myself, aye. And Bob D'Amico is still not with us. So the agenda will pass in the affirmative. Now, second on our list, we're pleased to speak to our Assabet Regional Technical High School budget presentation. I guess Mr. Houle will kick this off.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you very much. Good evening to the members of the Finance Committee, to our town manager, Mr. Codier, our esteemed school committee chair and representative to Northborough, Ms. Virginia Sims George, and of course to all of the residents of the town of Northborough. It is once again a pleasure to be before you to present our annual budget for FY22. As you know, most people in the country and in the world. We've all been dealing with COVID-19, and it's been no different in the school systems. I'm happy to report that Assabet has been able to conduct our schooling in a hybrid 50 model, in which the students are able to participate in their technical programs 100% of the time, every other week, and then they're doing their academics on pretty much an 80% remote type platform. So that's been our largest challenge. And of course, with COVID and the FY21 budget not getting passed so quickly from the governor's standpoint, it put the FY22 budget under a little bit of shorter time crunch than we're used to, even though we do start in we generally start in the July and August timeframe. That had been shortened this year. However, I think you'll find that we have once again put together a fiscally responsible budget, mindful that the challenges of COVID, state revenue, foundation budgets, things of that nature were going to be affected moving forward. But I think you'll see once again we've kept an eye on that, and we've come in at a level service funded budget, except for those items that we're contractually obligated to address. So if it would be okay, we'd like to share our screen just to kind of walk you through a PowerPoint. And I also check while Mr. Luoto is doing that. Most of you folks, I believe, got a Northborough budget book.
Yes.
Correct? Okay. Yeah, so we're not going to go through that particular book tonight. That's for your viewing pleasure. We're going to give you the dime tour through this PowerPoint, which should hopefully streamline things a little bit. So on the second slide, you'll see here's the topics of our presentation. As you can see, they're generally the same each year as we touch upon, and we'll kind of elaborate as we go through. Next slide. So our budget goals and how to survive the school budget in COVID-19. Obviously, the beginning of the school year, there were quite a few challenges and obstacles, how to just reopen with the guidelines restrictions. We had a number of positions in which we needed to reduce. We had a total of about 21 positions that we reduced in the district, with only an effect on 8 actual individuals. The other positions were reduced through attrition and then reassigned to other folks within the district in order to still maintain a high level of quality education for our students. You know, the regional transportation reimbursement for a while there coming into this year and actually for FY22 was up in the air. That continues, and we'll remind you each year that although it was a carrot when they regionalized the school systems, that was one of the carrots that they dangled. You know, the major one is that providing a regional approach to career and technical education helps reduce costs to our member districts, so that it's a shared cost for you to be able to offer the wide range of and plethora of the career tech education that we provide. But the regional transportation reimbursement is generally funded only between 60% to 73% is the highest it's been, or 74. In the law, it states 100% reimbursement. It has never been at that point, and we don't anticipate that anytime soon. The decreased spending was what we needed to do with the reduction in some of our staffing in order to pay for all the mitigation strategies that we had to employ in order to get staff and students in the building. So you'll see as we move through the slides here, next slide please, that with our budget, this year's FY22 budget overview, our operating budget comes in at a $23,104,000. It's a $667,000 increase over last year's budget, which is an overall 2.9% increase. However, it should be noted that it's only 1% above what our school committee voted in February of 2020. And then if you recall, I believe we actually, were we able to make a presentation there? No, we didn't get to, right? Northborough last year? You did.
We did.
I think I was sick that year, last year. But at that point, for that budget that was presented last year to you folks, it was 1% above what we're presenting today. But then in June, when COVID and the state revenue numbers came in, most of our towns had asked, is there any way that you could reduce your budget for FY21? We did so by $435,000. We used our E&D account to do so, and therefore it would pass on a slight savings to all of our member towns. We are going for the capital budget. It's our sixth service payment in FY22. That continues to decrease. It's a $1,922,875, which is an overall $55,000 decrease for all of our 7-member districts. So you'll see that. So coming into the FY22 school year, we have a budget to resume some of the positions that we had to cut in the past, but we have some additions to positions that we'd like to add this year. One is 2 technical specialists. One of the things that we've seen is with an increase in special education populations with our students that come in each year, and I'll remind you that it's a blind admissions process when it comes to students needing special education needs and assessments and abilities. We don't know what that is generally until the student arrives at our doorstep. So that number fluctuates. And so overall, Assabet has generally ranged between 28 to 34% of their student population of students requiring special needs assistance. This year, we're at about 30%. But in the technical areas, that number can be anywhere between 70% to 80%, because we do not discriminate students based on their educational needs of which shops they can potentially participate in. So within those CTE program areas, we're looking to add these 2 technical specialists that can provide some more one-to-one and hands-on for those students that are the most needy. In addition, we have 2 maintenance staff. Over the past, or I should say since 2015, we had 2 positions which we did not backfill. One was a general custodial position, and then the other one was our current facilities director. But when our prior facilities director had left, one of our maintenance staff moved up, took that position, and we never backfilled their position. So those are 2 positions that we're looking to add back into our operational budget. And then lastly, the staffing changes, as you can see up there, the special education positions. We have several that are in a special education grant. And with all grants, generally when you're going to start a type of a project, they don't mind using grant money to kind of get those positions off the ground. But after a certain number of years, those positions need to come out of the grant. And so those positions will be added to our operating budget. And then any special education costs would come through that special education grant. Another important thing to note is that as a regional vocational school, we do not have access to any type of circuit breaker money, which is another revenue stream to help out with special education costs. Next slide, please. So our budget details, as you can see, FY22, it's the same level service as the current fiscal year, meets all of our contractual obligations. We're coming into the final 3rd year of a 3-year contract with our collective bargaining units, AFT Local 3199. We're in the 2nd year of a transportation budget. So we'll be going into the 2nd year of a transportation budget. And again, the budget is only up 1% above what the original approved FY21 budget was back in February. The slight increase that you will see, which is a $20,000 increase, is to our supply budgets, which would be the second time in 5 years. And they've been level funded since FY16. And so we have an increase in some of our enrollments in our shop areas. And if you've been to Lowe's and a Home Depot in the last few months, you've seen that a 2x4 that used to cost about $268 for one single 2x4 is now in the $6 range or slightly above. So one of the difficulties that we have found and the obstacles this year of operating is we've been fortunate to work with the town of Northborough on several projects, community projects with our carpentry departments, our painting and design folks. Well, when we don't have those real world experiences available to our students, because you folks purchase all the materials for them to work and learn, we then have to provide that on campus out of our operational budget, because generally we keep that particular budget for supplies rather low because of that outside project. So that's been a little bit of a challenge this year. I will say that we did have some improvements with some LED lighting in a couple of our shop areas. So luckily, having our electricians on site under the guise of a licensed master electrician from our teachers, we were able to install those lights in those shops on our own. So, you know, that worked out rather well this year. And then lastly, our capital equipment is level funded for FY22. That too has been level funded since FY16. Assabet usually, or I should say always, aggressively looks for grants and applies for the skills capital grants that the governor's office puts out. To date, since I've been here, we've gotten $2.7 million in capital skills grants. The last two that we received, one of them went to our culinary arts program for all new equipment. They were able to redesign and refurbish the student-operated restaurant, the Epicurean Room, and that was a grant for $258,000. And just last year, our health technology program over the summer, most of the time, had a grant for $378,000. And so it's through funding like that that we're able to make sure that we have updated equipment, the latest greatest state-of-the-art equipment for our students to learn on and to keep up with industry standards. And the last slide for me, the capital assessment. Again, we mentioned FY22. If you remember back when we had our renovation project, when it was approved, the district borrowed the $27 million in FY16. As required, you can see we had a $1.1 million payment and an interest of $822,875. So there's a savings of $55,000 from last year. It's due on July 1st. And then there's the capital assessment breakdown per town. And if you recall that these percentages were based on a 3-year average of enrollment at the time when the towns took the vote. So Northborough's percentage point, 6.96, will remain for the lifetime of that capital debt assessment. And so you'll see a small savings of about $38.28 for this particular year. So at this point, I'm going to stop my portion, ask if there's any questions, or you can hold them to the end, and I will turn it over to Chris Luoto.
Thank you, Ernie. If there are no questions, I'll go through the remainder of the slides. I won't touch on all of them. I'll certainly try to be quick, as Superintendent Hull gave you an overview of what the FY22 budget looks like. I'm here this evening to speak to you and certainly explain how that's going to impact the town of Northborough and their assessment. So as you recall from meetings prior, the enrollment year after year is the primary driver for either an increase or decrease in your overall assessment. So this year, October 1 numbers for Northborough was 59 students. It was a +6 students. So it was slightly over an 11% increase in students from last year. And in addition to that, you can see in the gray shaded area, Northborough's operating share went up almost 0.5%, 6.62% from 6.14. So obviously there's an increase in the overall assessment just based on the almost 11.5% increase in overall enrollment for October 1st. Here's just an enrollment history, a 5-year enrollment history for the school district. We've gone from 1,103 students back in 2016 to 1,149, and we continue to increase year after year has been the trend over the last 5 years. Here's a breakdown of our in-district compared to our out-of-district students. You can see in the 2016-17 school year, we were taking 331 out-of-district students, and that number has decreased to 280. So we are taking more in-district students. And I'll explain, while certainly we want to accept our in-district students first, it does have an impact on the overall budget and does have an impact on the assessments because the smaller that out-of-district number is, the less out-of-district tuition revenue we take, and that is our second largest revenue source when we build our budget. One of the things we're proud of is, again, as Superintendent Hull mentioned, it's a 2.97% overall increase. But if you look at those two numbers at the top, and I think I've shared this with the Appropriations Committee year after year, we run a very lean budget. While those high schools in our comprehensive school districts run anywhere from 20 to 30 to 40% above net school spending, we historically have brought forward a budget to you just about at net school spending or slightly above, 1 or 2% above. And this year is no different, at about 1.5%, 2% above net school spending. Our 5-year average has been a 3.33% increase. And overall, in the last 10 years, the average has been a 2.94% increase. So we've really tried to control costs, look for additional revenue sources from grants, and really try to be conservative when it comes to the impact of our 7-member communities. The next 2 slides just break down the budget by function code and give an historical look from FY18 through FY19 and 20. And then it looks at the FY21 and FY22 budget. Typically, we spend within 1 and 2% of our overall budget year after year. This next slide in terms of per pupil expenditure. So this is a comparison on how Assabet compares to the other vocational technical schools across the Commonwealth in a per pupil expenditure basis. And so I think one of the things that we like to share is that we never want to be at the top of this list, but we certainly feel in order to provide a top level career technical education, we really don't want to be at the bottom. And I think we pride ourselves and try to stretch the the amount of resources that are allocated and appropriated to Assabet year after year. And I think in comparison, you can see that I think you should be proud at the job we do, certainly with the number of students in comparison in looking at how the other districts are doing across the Commonwealth when it comes to regional vocational schools. So this year is going to be a little bit different, but I'll spend a couple moments on this. So how is the assessment calculated? So we calculate based on the statutory method of assessment. Based on our regional agreement, there is no alternative method listed in it. So we're based on Mass General Law, we assess based on the statutory method. Here is the language in the law. Basically, in a nutshell, what it comes down to is there's 4 components of the statutory method of assessment. The first one is your minimum local contribution number. That's set by the state. The second one is your share of transportation minus what we expect and budget for reimbursement. The third is capital equipment, and we only have a $35,000 item in there this year for capital equipment. So your share is your operating share of 6 or 7%. And then the last is anything above the minimum in order to balance the budget. So those 4 buckets ultimately added together set the operating share for your assessment. So here is our revenue plan for FY22, made up of federal, state, and local receipts. Again, our largest revenue source is the $6 million from Chapter 78, and you'll see here from local receipts out of district, we're at $4.337 million. And as I mentioned, one of the challenges with taking more in-district students and less out-of-district students, there's been years prior where we budgeted 5.1, 5.2 million. And this year, unfortunately, due to the fact that we're taking more in-district students, we just don't have the funding in order to put that towards the operating budget. However, we've been able to certainly minimize the overall member assessments. We're at 11,053,133, which is certainly good in comparison to the $23 million budget. Yeah, I think the other thing to mention is that in terms of the out-of-district. Yeah, so the other thing to mention with the out-of-district tuition is that so that rate is set by the commissioner. Year after year, historically, it's gone up as a result of the pandemic. This past year, that rate was actually lowered for the first time by about $500. And so we lost a couple $100,000 just in expected revenue because the allowable rate that the district was allowed to charge for tuition was lowered to help. The purpose of it was to really help communities save costs at a time of need in COVID. And so that tuition cost was lowered, which ultimately impacted the amount of revenue that we would take in. And there's concerns as to what will happen for next year as well. Moving forward, so this is the minimum local contribution number. You can see for Northborough in FY21, it was 813,000. It's gone up to 932,000. So, it's a significant increase of $119,000 just in the minimum local contribution number, which is based on your overall enrollment moving from 53 students to 59 students. So what's different this year is that in the governor's budget, it allows for a portion of ESSER II funds that Assabet is receiving. These aren't funds that Northborough is receiving, but these are Assabet is receiving. Assabet's receiving $488,792 in ESSER II funds. What's in the governor's budget is that the regional district's members may deem a proportional share of 75% of the regional district's ESSER II grant award for increases in your required contribution equal to the municipality share of the district's total required contribution. So what that really means is, and the calculation is here, but Northborough can take this number that's highlighted, 31,365, and use that to offset the $119,000 increase that you have in minimum local contribution. The way that the law is written within the budget, that is a call that the member community decides, not the Assabet School District, not the representative on the school committee. It is something that all of you were to decide if you want to use that 31,365. So let me explain in closing on how that will impact the overall assessment to Northborough. This slide here shows that if you were to use the 31,365, you can see in Northborough, if you go across your required minimum contributions, 932,240, you'd subtract the 31,365, and then so forth. You would add in the transportation, capital equipment, for a total of 934,658. And then if you look on the bottom right table, that is the operating plus capital, which would be for a total combined assessment. I know typically Northborough does one warrant article for both the operating and capital number combined, be $1,068,490. So that was if you were to use your ESSER II funding to lower your assessment. Here, again, this just shows overall, this is with all our member communities using it. And again, it's a community decision. We've found one member community that has decided against utilizing it, but there's been others who have chosen to go ahead and utilize it at this point in time. Just in this next slide here, this is the comparison if you chose not to use it. The combined assessment would be $1,099,855, which is $97,009 increase, or just slightly under 10% overall increase. Any questions in regards to that? I know it's a little bit different than in years past. Based on, I guess what I would recommend to the committee, this is in the House One governor's budget. We believe that this will pass, but there's not 100% certainty at this point in time. It would be my recommendation to vote the higher number, but if you so choose at any point in time, even before town meeting, when we have a clearer picture on the budget, you certainly could utilize that $31,000 to offset the increase and lower it, and even take a vote at town meeting as well. But it's ultimately your call. Yeah, I mean, and I think the other piece, and I know John and Jason and I have had talks and shared some emails back and forth. And I think people ask, why shouldn't we use that money? Why, what else would it go towards? Or, I think the concern for some member municipalities is it is a one-time revenue source that is going to go away next year. And so, as you know, your assessment year after year historically, and in closing, I'll just show you this last slide. But as you can see, it's typically tied to enrollment. So if you have a big swing next year and go from 59 students to 69 or 70 students, obviously that's going to have a major impact on your assessment, that alone. And then in addition to that, you would lose that $31,000 of that one-time revenue as well, which would make the increase look even larger for next year.
We'll just say it's an increase of 3 students, so we don't get you too excited, John.
So if I may, through the chair, in no uncertain terms, we would like that applied. The regional high school is using their ESSER funds in the same manner. Everybody that I'm aware of is doing that. There is no downside, in my opinion, for the town to apply those funds or ask that those be applied. It's almost automatic. It's just because of the regional nature of Assabet that we're having this discussion, but otherwise those funds would be applied. So we would like to proceed with those being applied, I would say.
May I just check back on some of those figures? That was kind of quick. And I may have misunderstood this, but if I understand correctly, the assessment for the operating budget was $935,000. But then there is an additional assessment for the capital budget.
Correct.
And my question is, what was the number last year? What's the number this year and the percent increase?
So overall, you're looking at, so it depends on if you were to use the ESSER 2 funds. So if you were,
let's just assume that we are going to use those.
Yep. So you're looking at, so it'd be an increase of overall combined assessment 60. It's on this slide right here on the screen. 65,644 increase, which is a 6.55%.
60, so 65.
Tony, it's on page 33 of the budget book that you received as part of the packet.
Yeah, but I mean, it's hard to keep track with both of those.
I know
so,
that, but
I want to see it here. That's 65. Okay, and 6.55%. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from the committee or comments?
On just this or in general?
Well, on anything that the school has just presented to us.
I've got a couple things, if I may, through the chair. So just Ernie and Chris, I'm just curious how you made out on your health insurance renewals this year.
So we hope to bring it to school committee on Tuesday. I don't have a final number at this point in time. So in this budget, we budgeted 8%. I think, last time we spoke, we've had our year didn't start off well in terms of claims. We have a couple or more than a couple, large claims, currently active claims. But we're still working with Fallon at this point in time. We have a tentative vote set up on Tuesday for the school committee, and I have an insurance advisory committee meeting set up on Tuesday. But truthfully, I am told that anytime between tomorrow or Monday or Tuesday that I should get that figure. I'm hoping it's certainly less than what we budgeted, but our claims data has started to trend in the right direction. But certainly that's a concern.
Okay. And I noticed that you've applied $200,000 of E&D towards this budget. I'm just curious what your balance is, and is there a target balance that you're trying to keep? And is there a policy about how much you use out of your E&D to apply towards the operating
So
budgets?
there's not a policy. Every year we try to keep 4 to 5. I mean, every year we try to get certified at 4 to 5%. The challenge, so I think the superintendent alluded to it at the earlier part of the presentation, that last year when there was concerns and we cut the budget 435,000, we actually utilized 600,000 of D in the FY21 budget. So right now we have about 400,000 in there. We had put 200 as a placeholder for revenue. And again, I think right now we may utilize, there's potential to use more, but until that out of district tuition number is set, we truly don't know what that's going to be. But I think it'll be between 200,000 and 300,000 that we utilize this year.
Okay. Of course, once the budget gets going, there's only a couple of places you have to maneuver if you get a special education placement or something unexpected happening, and that's essentially your reserve account.
Yep.
Okay.
Hey, John, would you like a vote of the Appropriations Committee concerning this, the ESSER funds, or is that not necessary?
Certainly, if the committee would like to entertain that, that certainly wouldn't hurt.
All right, I'll be open for a motion from a committee member to accept and use the ESSER funds to lower our payment to the ESPIT budget. Would anyone like to make a motion?
Sure, so moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, Tony made a motion that we use the ESSER funds, and Bob Brinkle seconded. I'll take a roll call. All in favor, George Brinkle,
Aye.
Janice Height,
Aye.
and Anthony Petit,
Aye.
and myself, aye. I was a little remiss at the beginning of this meeting. We are missing our chair lady, Elaine Kelly, and Bob D'Amico is also missing. But that still leaves 4 members present, and we do have a full quorum to take these votes.
Yes.
This vote passes unanimously to use the ESSER funds. Is there any other comments from the school or from any members?
Just one other question to the chair, if I may. I have been trying to follow, as I'm sure you have, the $1.9 trillion federal aid package. And it's tough to see how that comes through and what would come directly to the municipality. Have you had any attempt to try and figure out how that might benefit Assabet if it passes? Or if it will benefit Assabet as a regional entity?
So at least I think from the last time in which was it the original ESSER 1, right? We didn't, was that the municipality funds? We didn't have any access.
Okay, yeah, we did. We got money.
No, but the ones that were shared with the municipality.
Yeah,
We
correct.
didn't access, right?
Correct.
So the last time that they had some COVID relief that had gone directly to municipalities, they did not include regional school districts, and that the regional school districts would have to apply to each of their member municipalities, submit invoices, very cumbersome type process. Assabet at that point in time chose not to take part in that action, except for direct relation. Usually everything to us comes through the Department of Ed. And so unless they change it so we get a direct type of a reimbursement or a direct relief, we haven't heard any kind of peep more than you about how they're going to deliver that.
Yeah, so the word is that it's going to come directly to municipalities and not flow through the states, which is different than the last rounds. What I don't see or I haven't heard, and I didn't know if maybe through your association you had a little bit more insight into this, is how it would impact or potentially be distributed to the regional schools. So it'll be positive no matter how you slice it. I just didn't know if you're aware of any aspect of it that would come directly to you as a regional entity. I hadn't seen anything. I was just curious if you had heard.
Yeah, nothing as of yet. I don't know if, actually, Madam Chair from the school committee, if you had heard through MASC, I'm not sure if this group knows that Virginia is also the chair of the Division 10, right? Group through MASC. So
Yes.
she's on the board of directors now for MASC, and I don't know if she may have heard through that state organization.
No, we have not, I have not heard. We were putting together a document to send out to give the authority back to the schools, but have not heard any definitive answers as of yet.
That's what I figured. I just thought I would ask. Just the last comment I would make for the benefit of the committee is, if you remember when we initially were looking at our budget models back in December 14th, we met to go over the financial trend monitoring projections. We were carrying, I believe, 19 or 20% potential assessment increase for ASABIT. So I appreciate them doing the work and laying out the ESSER fund application for us. And, at this point, we're looking at a 6.5% roughly increase in our assessment, something that's be much more manageable for us in terms of the tax impact. And as Chris always likes to point out, I'm always say it's the enrollment. Their budgets have always been reasonable. I don't think they've ever come with anything that I've felt I've needed to push back on. We're all kind of struggling through revenue constraints and impacts of COVID. I just appreciate the reasonable overall budget. It's online and in target with what we've asked of our own schools to come forward with, and our general government budgets are coming forward with. So I just appreciate you getting that down, and but still being able to maintain the quality services that you provide to the students that go there. You got a great reputation. The other thing I would add is just remind folks, you have met with the DPW director. ASABET is going to be a partner with us in the water and sewer garage that's being constructed. So we have, we'll be putting the shell up. ASABET, when appropriate and safe, their students will be doing the entire fit out on the inside of that for us. And as always, that's a great partnership. The quality of work that's done is just top shelf, and I don't have to pay prevailing wages. So all around, it makes me a very happy camper. So, but no, the students are great, and the staff. Wayne Colson comes over, does a great job. But that project's going to give multiple trades. There'll be plumbing, electrical, carpentry. Everybody's going to be able to work in something that you don't get a lot of experience with, and that's working in a metal, prefabricated metal building. So I think it's a great win project all around for everybody involved. So, but we appreciate, as always, the collaboration on the building project as well. So thank you. Excellent.
And Mr. Chair, if I may, just a couple last comments. One, I just want to make sure I give, it is a team effort, but it takes the outstanding efforts of Chris every year to come up with, we can throw at him all the numbers and what we're going to do, but he needs to put in a presentation that's easily digestible and understood. So I appreciate Chris's work. We appreciate the support of our school committee. As always, they are always at the forefront of making sure that we're doing what's in the best interest of students. And sometimes, we could be presenting to you a much higher budget, but we then have to tell them, remember, we need to go sell it. So we need to get back down to something that's a little bit more reasonable, but we appreciate their efforts. And then lastly, we appreciate your support. And if there's anything that we can do from the standpoint of vaccinations, we have an LPN program with practical nursing students. We have 38 adult students currently in our LPN program. They have been participating in administering vaccines through clinics that have been set up through the boards of health. So if your boards of health or anyone in your town, John, that needs additional volunteers, these students have been certified through the CDC for vaccinations, and they use that as their clinical time. So they can run it from very start to get-go all the way through processing, and you just need to provide the vaccines and the location. And that's what we've been doing for our communities. We've been working with Marlboro. Hudson. We have free clinics tomorrow scheduled for students over there in the Hudson, in the town of Hudson. So if we can offer that to you as well, I can get you the contact of our Director of Nursing, Ellen Santos, and reach out. She'll be glad to work with you.
Yeah, that's great. We are certainly be interested in speaking to you about that. We have run clinics. We've got a clinic tomorrow scheduled for 250 residents. The local, I'm sure you've heard that the state has decided to no longer allow and permit local clinics that just serve one community. So they're moving to a regional model. Town of Northborough has made a proposal for a regional clinic pairing up with Southborough, Westborough, and several other area communities. So we just submitted that today, and we're waiting to hear back. But if that moves forward, I'll have my health agent reach out to you and see if that's something that we can work together on. So appreciate it.
Excellent.
John, also want to give kudos to your team. I see the chief over here, and all of them, they did a marvelous job last Friday. We were there 20 minutes in and out. Excellent.
We just wish the state would give us the vaccine. We'd love to run the clinics for our people because we're going to do it efficiently and effectively. But well, we'll see what happens. But thank you. Appreciate that feedback.
I think our committee appreciates seeing you every year. All the work you put into your budgets and the books that you supply us makes it very easy to understand, and a pleasure working with you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
All right.
All right. Are there any other comments before we move on?
No.
All right, seeing none, I will dismiss the school committee and the schools giving their presentations here, unless I'd like to hang on and see the rest of our show. The next item on our agenda is oh, yes, Virginia.
Bye. Thank you all. Have a good evening. Bye now.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Virginia.
Take care.
Virginia.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is the police budget, and that will come from our chief, Bill Liver. Is Bill with us? You're muted, Bill.
Yep, I got it. Okay. Don't call me technically inclined. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So bring it up here. It's been a busy year. We anticipate it will continue to be busy. We have really no significant increases this year. The department overall budget is an increase of $46,188 at 1.55%. And that basically accounts for the contractual wages of 2% for the union and non-union employees for the upcoming fiscal year. The wages are actually a smaller increase than normal. That's due to employee turnover. We had two employees leave to embark on the private sector careers. And we have one lieutenant that's retiring. So he's been out of work for a while. And we have replaced some of our the missing employees with newer employees that start at lower rates of pay. So they're at the starting steps of the pay scales, which resulted in a lower increase than normal. Computer services went up somewhat, about $11,935. Again, that is due to increases in monitoring fees and network maintenance. As just about anywhere these days, there's no such thing as operating without technology, and it just keeps getting more and more expensive. We were able to restore $5,000 back into my cruiser maintenance budget that was reduced last year as a result of the required cost-cutting measures due to COVID. Let's see. During the course of this past year, we were reaccredited for another 3 years through the Commission on Accreditation of Police Agencies. We increased our participation in the Central Mass Law Enforcement Council's SWAT team by one member. We now have 2 members of that SWAT team. Let's see. Other than that,
Chief,
basically things are smooth.
Chief, you want to speak for a moment? I know you were very passionate in this and spent a lot of time this past year talking about the jail diversion program.
Yep.
Would you mind just sharing that with the
Sure.
committee?
Well, we actually had 2 programs that I was genuinely interested in bringing in from the get-go. And one of them was the jail diversion program. And that entails a mental health clinician that is not an employee of the department. She works for the advocates. We're partnered with the advocates out of Framingham, and they have a co-responder program, which is funded through a grant from the Department of Mental Health. They hire a clinician that actually works out of the police departments. We share this clinician with Westboro and Southboro. So 1 to 2 nights a week, she's working, actually we're in the process of selecting a new clinician. The one that we had and was very well accepted here and a huge help, left the advocates for another position. But right now they're screening applicants, and it's a unique position. Most social or healthcare, mental health clinicians don't ride around in police cars. They don't ride with police officers. They don't work out at police stations. This is a unique program that started probably about 20 years ago with Framingham, and it's expanded and it's become basically a national model. So we managed to partner with Westboro and Southboro, and regardless as to where that clinician is working, if we have a crisis situation in Northborough, we have someone that is having an emotional issue, suicidal, drug dependent. The clinician responds obviously with the officer and does the mental health assessment. One of the nicer things about it is that clinicians are able to legally do an in-cell examination and determine whether or not a person is safe to even be in a police cell, jail cell, and get that person transferred to a more appropriate facility or hospital where they aren't in a police setting. It has saved numerous overtime hours for our department, because normally we would have to take somebody involuntarily to the hospital. An officer would have to fill out a Section 12, a mental health, an involuntary mental health confinement form. A psychiatrist or psychologist would have to review it, agree with the officer's judgment, and then order the person to be confined and evaluated. That now is done by the clinician. It frees up our officers. And oftentimes the clinician can find that person placement in a non-emergency room setting where they can actually get treatment. So that bypasses the cost and expense basically to the taxpayer in most instances for hospitalization through an emergency room visit. And it obviously keeps folks out of the emergency room. The intent of the program is to divert people away from the prison system, especially people with mental health issues, substance abuse, substance use disorders, and in particular, folks that are suffering from mental illness from entering the criminal justice system because they don't belong there. They won't get the resources and treatment that they need. So it has basically paid huge dividends for us. The fact that they run around, they ride with the officer and the officers are present when they're doing their evaluations has increased our officers' confidence immensely when it comes to dealing with mental health issues, substance use disorders, to the point where they're much more comfortable in doing that when the diversion clinician is not present. So really glad that we brought that in. There's no cost to the town for that. As I said, it's a grant from the Department of Mental Health. This is going on its second year full time, and it's probably 20 years overdue, but just really, really, really happy to have it. Another program was that I was kind of passionate to bring into the department was the Communities for Restorative Justice. And that is we partnered with a restorative justice nonprofit, and we divert folks away from the criminal justice system for minor offenses such as misdemeanors, or we really don't want to use it for crimes of violence, but sometimes it's up to a victim. A victim may not want to testify or be a witness, but they can also agree to have a person go through this restorative process where the intent is to restore the equilibrium in the community, or between the perpetrator and the victim. It involves an intake, a referral from the police. There's a circle which has trained volunteers, plus a facilitator from the Communities for Restorative Justice. They talk with the perpetrator, the victim, the suspect, the perpetrator or transgressor must accept and admit to what they did. They have to take responsibility for it. If there's restitution involved for vandalism or so, they have to agree to pay for that. They have to come up with a plan to do that, so it just doesn't come out of mom and dad's pocket if it's juvenile. It could be in the form of community service, but they have to check in on a regular basis. And the circle, the group that meets with that person, provides them with support. They have to write a sincere and meaningful apology letter. And then they get to meet the victim firsthand. And the victim gets to explain the impact that it had on them, their family, or maybe even the neighborhood, or even a community. And it's a very, actually, we've had 6 teenage kids from Northborough at high school age, and a couple of middle school students that have gone through the program. And that is in lieu of dragging them into juvenile court and branding them with a juvenile delinquency record. So it's actually one of those cases is just wrapping up. It takes about 3 months sometimes before the offender has completely gone through the restorative justice process. And then at the end, there's a closing circle, and they close the case. So those are 2 things that I'm very pleased that we have. Again, it's just more tools in our toolbox, and it's less. It's not hitting a bug with a baseball bat anymore. It's actually providing counseling and again restoring the justice. And the victim has to, of course, go along with it from the get-go. If they don't want to participate, it doesn't happen. But we have found that most victims actually do want to participate in it because folks want to give kids a second chance. We can also use this for young adults. It's not just limited to children or juveniles. We have not had the occasion yet to offer the program to an adult. It's not that we're not looking. It's just that we tend to gravitate more towards juvenile offenders. So glad to see with that. Again, I mentioned the SEMLEC SWAT team, and so those programs will continue because there's no cost to the town as far as the restorative. I take that back. We do pay an annual fee to Communities for Restorative Justice because they do all of the administrative work, schedule the cycle, the circles, and do all of the administrative work involved with that. So I still am determined to get a canine patrol in here. It's been vetted through the board, and the only reason we haven't was, well, this past year was COVID put a kind of clamp on canine training, and they basically almost any kind of in-person training. And the only other obstacles has been the fact that we've had some turnover in employees, and a canine officer. The canine program requires the canine and the handler to go to 16 weeks of full-time training. There is a grant available that covers that overtime costs for the backfill, as well as all the equipment necessary to modify a cruiser. So it's been a matter of having sufficient personnel on deck, and COVID. They have started doing the canine academies again, but again, I don't have the personnel right now. We've got one officer that'll be starting the academy on April 26th. And we have 2 employees that we hired back a couple of months ago that were academy trained and can go right to work. But they had to do a 10-week field training program with us here first to learn how to do things our way. So that has kept us at bay when it comes to doing anything new when it comes to personnel or extra training. So with that, I will entertain any questions if you have.
You mentioned that we lost a couple of officers and a lieutenant. Have these been replaced one by one? We're not down any men, are we?
Right at the moment, we are down 1 person. But we will be at our authorized strength when our newest officer starts on April 12th. But we have 1 officer out for administrative reasons. So other than that, we will be at full staff. But we don't. We've backfilled every position, but we will have to promote a lieutenant, which will create a sergeant's opening, which will result in a patrolman being promoted to sergeant. But once that happens, we'll be at our again, as I said, we're at our authorized strength, but that's because we brought in the newest officer early before the end of the fiscal year using funds from the 2 offices that left, one in September and one in, I believe, October.
So as you can see from the slide that's up right now, the department is authorized at 22 sworn officers, including the chief. So that's the full authorization. The fiscal 22 budget that he just presented to you includes funding of all those positions. It's just a matter of a little bit of turnover and transition, but that's all in process. And the idea is to be at full strength as quickly as we can, going through the appropriate process. But the budget does support the full authorization of personnel.
Yeah, the only thing I could add to that, Mr. Chair, would be just for future information. When we have a vacancy, if we can't find an academy trained officer to bring in, from the time that we advertise the position, go through the selection process, do the background, do all the testing required, and find a position at an academy for a non-academy trained officer, they're not available to us for almost a year. The academy alone is a full 6 months. Then when they graduate the academy, there's 2.5 months of field training program. And then when you add to that the advertising, the hiring, the physical assessment testing, psychological evaluation testing, it basically takes the better part of a year, minimum 10 months that they're not available, which will be the case with the officer that comes on board on April 12th. He'll start the academy on the 26th of April. He'll be gone for 6 months attending the academy. And when he comes back, he'll have to do 10 weeks of field training where he rides with another one of our officers. So it's a long transition when we hire somebody that's not academy trained. So in the pool of it, everyone's in the same boat. Every police department in Massachusetts wants academy trained officers. And the pool is running low, which means we have to start looking at folks that want to be police officers, have the education per se, got their degree in criminal justice, but wants to break into the career. And that requires that whole 10-month process. And that's where we are right now.
Any questions or comments from the committee?
I'd like to ask about the canine unit. If I'm anticipating perhaps that this would be a future budget issue or question, and the question is what capabilities does the acquisition of dogs add to the police department, and what's the use of this? I'm just completely
The primary use
ignorant of this.
No, there's a basic police patrol canine program, and that's where a dog gets trained with the handler to do things such as area searches. We have someone who broke into a house and they ran out the back door The neighbors call the police. We show up. The dog is trained to pick up the freshest scent from the area where the person left, and then we'll track that person. Lost children. They're trying to do article sense searches, where they can grab a toy, a doll, a teddy bear, an article of clothing from a missing child. The handler will let the dog scent it, and then give the command to search, and it will search for that scent. It's at times it can be used as a force multiplier. Quite honestly, you can sometimes get there's a whole changing philosophy on canine programs, and it's going to be impacted by the Police Reform Act as well, as police canines have to be moving forward, will have to be like a last resort as far as like along the use of force. If you have a suspect that's, say, attacking an officer. But the days of using them at, peaceful gatherings as an intimidation factor, they're over, and that's not what I want it for. I want it to find people. I want it to find drugs. You can train a dog to do basic police patrol and one, maybe two, I'm told, but at least one subspecialty area. It could be drugs. Back in the day, every canine was taught how to smell marijuana. Well, marijuana is not illegal anymore for the most part, so no one's training their canines to smell marijuana. You can train them to just basically scent out anything you want. Guns, explosives, bodies. That's not what I would be using ours for. I would move more towards, if we were going to go with the second. Keep in mind, the second specialty is another 16 weeks of training. The dog will be nearing retirement by the time it's trained. So the average, it's 5 to 7 years for a patrol canine. But the Stanton Foundation provides the grant. It's a shell fund. We just have to provide the budget costs, and they find the dog, they fund the dog, they fund the training, they reimburse the overtime, and they will even fund up for a second dog. I have no intentions of going for a second dog, only because you really have to be an animal lover to sit in a police car that a dog's been in for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. So they tend to get their own assigned cruiser because the dog has to go home with them. We can't keep it here. So they take an officer assigned to the canine program has to take his cruiser home, because of two reasons. One, we would be under the SEMLEC mutual aid agreement. We make extensive use of other communities' dogs because we don't have our own. We make extensive use out of the state police. We're always on the negative column. We've never been able to be on the plus side where we've rendered assistance for the canine. We use other people's dogs all the time, but we've, again, never. We had a canine here in Northborough going back to the early to mid 80s. And it was a very effective program. In that fact, it was the biggest black German Shepherd you ever saw. It reminded me of a relatively small black bear. His name was Kano, but it was. That's the only time we ever had one back in the 80s. So it's another tool. Plus, they are, believe it or not, these days they've become a tremendous public relations asset. They come into the schools. I mean, quite honestly, I would, in addition to that, I'd like to have a comfort dog, like a lab or something, and train to bring it into schools when you have a kid having a meltdown. And I could actually use it under my desk here when I'm having budget talks and doing my budget, and I could have the dog with me. I can pat it and it can calm me down. So
Come on, Bill. It's not that bad doing the budget with me.
It's not. But when I read like things like the police reform bills and things like that, I that would be very nice. But that's the canine program. Again, I'm not looking for the pearled snarling teeth. Again, I want it to be a tool that's positive.
So the only other thing tonight, so the chief does have a capital project that's going before town meeting. He's already met with the financial planning committee. It's cruiser replacements. As you can see, this is the schedule for capital projects for the police department. We deferred a cruiser last year, so that you see that cruiser being picked up in 2023. But I'll let the chiefs. We won't go through you have all the projects for future years, but this, in terms of the fiscal 2022 capital budget, the cruiser replacement is the only thing coming forward from the police department. So let the chief speak to that.
We replace our cruisers on a cycle, 2 cars 1 year, 3 cars the next. We replace our cars based on what has basically been identified as a best practice. We try to move them out of the fleet between 4 and 5 years of service and or at 100,000 miles. When we purchase the cruisers, we purchase them with an extended warranty, bumper to bumper. And most of those warranties, depending on the manufacturer, are either 4 years and 100,000 miles or 5 years and 125,000. So if it's like a Dodge product, it may be longer. If I'm sorry, Dodge is 4 years, 100,000 miles, and Ford would be the 125,000 5-year. So we pay for that up front, which has reduced our cruiser maintenance cost over the years considerably. Basically, we pay for consumables, tires, windshield wipers, oil changes, things of that nature. The actual maintenance of the cruisers, they basically remain under warranty for the life of the car. So this year, as John mentioned, last year was a 2-year replacement. Again, due to constraints, we went with 1. This year is a 3-year replacement. Again, in fiscal 23 would be 2, but I've put in for a 3rd car to restore the equilibrium there with the fleet. If I lose 1 car like we did last year, that's 2 other offices that have to be put into another car that have 2 other offices inside. So basically, it dramatically impacts the number of miles and hours that the cars are being used. The odometers run up, and mileage wise, and the car idles much more. Standard rule of thumb with police fleets is that if you take the mileage on a car and add 30% to that, that would represent its idle time, sitting at accidents, sitting on the roadside, doing radar, officers sitting on the roadside, monitoring traffic. It basically reflects about another 30% on the mileage. So the car may have 100,000 miles on the odometer, but wear and tear wise, it's more like 130,000. So we replace on that schedule. And again, this is a scheduled for a year. It's been that way for prior to my coming on board. It was actually acknowledged in our the 2016 staffing study by the consultants as a basic model replacement scheme for agencies our size, as far as moving the cruisers out of the fleet, so that the officers actually have serviceable, safe vehicles to work. And I always want to remind people that for the average patrol officer, that black and white car with 4 wheels is their office for 6 to 8 hours a day. And when you have 2 people in that car, we try to run them no more than 16 hours a day, so that there's 1 shift they're not running. We do keep a spare cruiser because things do break, and times you have to wait for replacement parts to come in. So we do have an older car right now. It's a 2015 Ford. It's got a couple hundred, about 130,000 miles on it. But if we lose a cruiser, we have that, and we also use it on details if it's a dangerous location. Instead of having a new car idle for 8 hours, we use the older car. So by the time we're done with them, they're used, and we do trade them in at the end. And actually, I don't know why there's a market for used police cars. Everybody wants to drive something that says Police Interceptor on the back trunk lid. So we actually get good money for them. I wouldn't pay a dime for them, but I know how they're driven. So excuse me. I hope that answers your questions or any concerns.
Any questions or comments from the committee? I just have one outside of the budget.
Mhm.
I read the Community Advocate a lot, especially the police logs. For some reason, Northborough is rarely in there in the police log.
I have asked that question myself of members of the Community Advocate. They come in here, they get emailed our log. We are in there on occasion. I actually noticed it today. It said Northborough Police Log. But I actually have noticed the same thing. I don't know. Maybe I said something to offend a reporter. I have no idea. So
It's not that we're just a nice, good town without anything going on.
Yeah, we're just not that exciting relative to our neighbors, I would say.
I don't get that because we're all pretty much the same. And, Marlboro usually tends to take the lead on it, and that's justified. I mean, you can understand that. I mean, they're more than twice the population and area. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe one of our guys gave a ticket to somebody that works there. I don't know. Well, community.
Is there anything else from anybody? Okay, Chief, thank you for your presentation, and always nice to see you.
Thank you. And thank you, Mrs. Seif, for that kind card that you sent for Officer Montville.
Do you remember? I still have a comfort dog if you'd like one. I think we had one when you used to come over for play dates.
Unfortunately, I've looked into this, and it's almost like a police canine because you bring it into schools, things like that. It has to have a handler, and it has to train from a young age with that officer. It's yeah, they've got one in Franklin, and the dog's name is Ben. So it's a yellow lab, but it's cute. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Chief.
Be happy to sit under your desk, particularly if you had a cookie supply, the one I have now. The dog would be happy to sit under your desk.
No, I wouldn't have it sit under my desk. It probably, the dispatchers would claim it. It'd probably be in dispatch because they were in there by themselves 8 hours a day. So, good night.
Thank you,
Good night,
Chief.
Chief. All right, then, moving on, the next item on our agenda is the fire budget, and we will hear from Chief, where am I? Chief Parenti, if he can leave the Zoom control panel for a moment.
Yeah, I was just looking and seeing how our stream was going, and we're doing okay. So I'm always concerned we're gonna lose our connectivity. So thank you very, very much, Mr. Chair. I'm gonna start by giving you a little overview of what our year has been like, and it's been interesting to say the least. So COVID has kept us just a tad busy. Since we started recording our COVID interactions, we've done 206 transports of COVID. Now that's ones that we know of. We do have transports that we don't know of that turned out being COVID positive, but those are ones that we do know of. So that has kept us busy. We've also been very involved with the vaccination clinic. So far, we have successfully vaccinated over 400 of our citizens. And as the town administrator noted, we have one coming up tomorrow where we're hoping to do another 200 plus. So very exciting. My guys have been just outstanding, stepping up to the plate and getting in there and doing the vaccinations. And I can't say enough about them and about all the members of the town who have stepped up. So that's terrific. Call wise, calendar year 20, we were up slightly. We had 2,359 calls. So that's a little bit higher than we were in 19 by about 30 calls. Permits, we did 1,254 in 20, and inspections we did 1,051. And people are always like, "Wow, how can you do that many inspections?" You know, that's a whole lot of building. Well, don't forget, every time we go out and someone sells a house, that's an inspection because we have to do a 26F for them, right? So, and some of those inspections fail more than once. So if we're out there 2 or 3 times, that'll be 2 or 3 inspections that are listed in our query runner when we run them. So we do a lot of those types of inspections. We were delayed for quite a while during the first several months of COVID, and everything backed up. But we have since been able to get back on track and get out there, and we're all caught up. We're very excited about that. And again, that's keeping us really, really pretty busy. The other thing I wanted to point out is, and one thing I'm always trying to do is find other ways to pay for things that we need. You know, are there other sources out there? And the town administrator knows this. I'm always looking for grants, and we're always looking for different things. And I had my grants guy put together a little thing for me today because I was curious how we've done. And I said, hey, go back to January of 20 and tell me how we're doing. Since January 20, we have actually been awarded $91,188 in grant funds. And I was like, seriously? We get that much? And I went back and I looked, and yeah, we got all kinds of stuff, and we have some more that are pending. We actually have one that we just submitted for almost $300,000. We'll see how that works for some more radios, which is part of our CIP. But everything from turnout gear to wash machines to new meters we're getting. And I have to give all the credit in the world to Mike Borowick, who is my grant writer, who does an incredible job. He's actually a full-time Shrewsbury firefighter, and he writes their grants for them as well. So I always tell them that we better get a grant if they get a grant, because, you know, I don't want you giving them something you're not giving us. But $91,000, we were just thrilled with that. So that's a 10,000 foot snapshot of where we are as a department. Staffing wise, we've had a little turnover. We've had some older personnel have retired. We've had some younger guys. It's a different kind of environment out there now, and younger guys will do actually what we call contract shopping. So they look and they see where the BBD is, where the bigger, better deal is, and sometimes they'll go to a different department strictly because there's some more money in it, as opposed to a lot of us, as we came up through, we spent 20 years in a department, 30 years in a department before we moved on. And if we moved on, it was only for a promotion. So it's kind of a different world out there. The budget I'm presenting you tonight is a service level service funded budget. There were a couple minor increases, mostly are contractual. Nothing really out of the norm. We were able to add $5,000 back into our capital outlay. Now that's a very important line for us, though. Separate from, and I think this is a great idea, what the town financial boards have done, where they have taken items that don't necessarily fit into the CIP, but that I would refer to as a capital item. So either cost-wise, they don't fit in there, or how long we're going to be using them, they don't fit in there. But they've created a fund for us, and it's called the capital outlay fund, and it's always been $30,000. In the last year, due to the COVID and everything, we dropped that down to 20,000, and this year we were able to get it back up to 25,000. And one of the big things we use that for is for replacing our turnout gear. Now, firefighter turnout gear, to buy a coat and a pair of pants, is about $3,000. Okay, that stuff lasts us no more than 10 years. We have to turn it over every 10 years. So normally what we do is we have it primary for 5 years and then backup for 5 years. All of our personnel have 2 sets of gear. And the reason for that is because it allows them to wash a set of gear after a fire, or if a set of gear gets soaked at a fire, they have a dry set they can use for the next call. It reduces our cancer exposure, which has become a real issue in the fire service, and it helps prevent injuries. So all of our firefighters, which is a great thing for this town to do. They've been able to support it. So with that increase, we'll be able to buy some new gear that I advised the town administrator we were going to need in the next coming years. Excuse me. So we're really happy with that. There's a few other minor increases. Same with the police chief. Technology is ruling our world now, and all of our vehicles. But one of the things I've tried to do is to find great technology, but how can we do it cheap? So when I first started in the fire service, everyone was putting laptops, right? Mobile laptops at every truck. Well, they get beat up pretty bad, and they're very, very, very expensive. They're like $6,000-7,000 for the units that we used. So we made the changeover a couple of years ago. We put iPads in all of our vehicles for $300 to $400 a piece that do everything that we needed the laptops to do. Plus, our medics can take them inside and use them to complete the reports inside the houses, much easier than dragging a big laptop around. So it's worked out really well for us. So every single piece of equipment we have, except for our backup units, have an iPad in them, and they're all connected. So we have those slight increases. Otherwise, our budget is pretty much what it was last year. Again, there's always little things that go up here and there. Our staffing is the same. We have had a slight decrease in our call staff volume. So we're down to three very active call firefighters now. We've promoted a couple of them to our career department, and we don't have any other ones right now that we're hiring, mainly because one of the big things is COVID. We just can't bring them in to train them. So we've been in a holding pattern for quite a while. But hopefully at some point in time, we can look and bring some more of those guys in. And that was the other kind of notable deduction. I dropped that line item by $4,000, knowing that I was trying to get money back in the capital item. So as far as our capital projects, I can either cover that now or I can cover it after. John, since you're already there, if you want to scroll down a little bit further, we can talk about our capital.
If I could just chime in just for a second here, Chief. So, again, as you know, all of our budget documents that go to the committee and that we make available to the public are in the exact same format, beginning, as I always say, it starts off with a mission statement. You have an organizational chart of the department, how it relates to the larger organization. You've seen the initiatives and accomplishments from the prior year, the upcoming year. And then this is just where I wanted to draw your attention to the significant budget changes. So as the chief said, it's a level, actually, I'm sorry,
I believe that's last year's, John.
This somehow last year's made it in. The overall budget increase is a 1.8% increase.
Yeah.
So it's very minimal increase, only a couple items in motion. But the overall department does involve, you bear with me one second. The one point to be made is, so there's several funding sources for our department. There's the general fund, and then there's the EMS account. So in fiscal 2022, it's a $39,059 increase, which is a 1.89% increase, mostly driven by just contractual wage increases. But overall, the department's budget is $2.77 million. 2.19 of that is the general fund, and then there's it includes a transfer from the EMS fund, which is basically the ambulance fees. And then there are also charges where we charge directly to the ambulance revolving fund, and that's another $582,000 roughly. So the general fund budget is that you see here, and that gets approved by town meeting, and will, under Article 4, will be about 2.19 million. The total resources that we do spend is actually $2.77 million. And again, it's driven by the fact that we run an ambulance service, and that service generates fees that come back to support the department. So,
yep. And it's a terrific system we have, and it works really well. So I'm very excited about that. So our overall our capital improvement program, John always has us put in a 6-year program. I have my own 10-year program, right, just because I like to know where we're going to be. Even if I'm not going to be here in 10 years, I want to give whoever's coming in to replace me a good map to see where I was intending, at least to see how I was going. But what you're seeing here is our 6-year plan. You'll see this year there's only 2 items being replaced, and one of them is car 3, which is our pickup truck. That truck is utilized for all kinds of things: inspection, incident response. It's utilized when we have a major incident. We go out and we pick up our hose and put it in the back of the truck and bring it back. We use it to distribute the PPE that we're getting into other departments. So that truck is used quite a bit. It has close to 70,000 miles on it, I believe. Let me see if I can get the exact amount. Yeah, it's got 65,000 miles on it right now. And it doesn't look like that anymore because it's got a red stripe on it, so it looks much prettier now. And but it's starting to show its wear and tear. The body's getting beat up, and it's time for that truck to be traded in and to purchase a new one. Now, people always say when they look at my truck replacements, my small vehicle replacements, $80,000 is a lot for a pickup truck, and they're right. It certainly is. If it was just a pickup truck we were replacing, but we also have to equip that truck with radios and lights and sirens, and we stripe it, and sometimes there's additional equipment that goes on it. So that's where the extra costs come in. This board understands the way I do things. I'll ask for $80,000, and if I spend 60, you get 20,000 back. I don't believe in spending money just because it's there. I believe in buying what we need to buy and then returning the rest. And I've done that, as you know, with the biggest one was the engine, where I returned $100,000 because we didn't need to expend it. So this is item one. Item two is the replacement of one of our SUVs. Now we have 2 command vehicles. This is my vehicle that's being replaced. Currently, this vehicle only has about 36,000 miles on it. Now, when I say being replaced, I want to be specific of it's not going away. Car 3 is being traded in. This car will be reused. So this will be going down to replace car 2, which currently has 92,802 miles on it. That one's been around for a while, and that's been beat up a lot. So this one will go down and replace that vehicle. That vehicle will then be traded in or you know, whatever we can get for it. And the new one will be assigned to me, because as far as the small vehicles, my vehicle gets the most use. Obviously, from responding when I'm off duty, responding when I'm at duty, for trainings, for meetings. So my car, it definitely gets the most use. This one is $76,000, and again for the same purpose. We will be equipping this with additional radios, with lights, sirens, all that necessary equipment. Now, anything I can reuse from the other truck will be reused. Since this car is being handed down, most likely it'll stay intact when it goes down. And the new one will have all new stuff in it. Some new interoperable radios, so I don't have to have as many radios in the truck, and some other equipment that modern technology is assisting us with. And with an iPad, because my cars have iPads in them as well. So those are the 2 vehicles we're replacing this year. Going out, we have some other trucks that, you know, if you guys have access to that, if you want to ask questions, you have some stuff about that, I'm more than happy to answer any questions about going forward. But that's our 2 big ones this year. And of course, we have the fire station coming up in the next year. And if John wants to elaborate on that, that's fine. But if not, I'm here for any questions for you guys.
Any questions from the committee or comments?
If I may, the budget documents we have are from 2 years ago.
Yes, I apologize. Somehow the wrong PDF got linked into the packet. I just sent you the current one.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to ask about.
The spreadsheet, just so we're clear, the
Is correct.
spreadsheet is correct.
Yes.
The detail is what was from a prior year, and I apologize. That's entirely my fault. The chief had it correct and the admin had it correct. I just sent it to. I got lazy and I went to the last file that dropped down, and it's named the same thing but from a different year. So that's entirely my fault. But you have the correct detail I just mailed out. Yep. And I can pull it up here if you'd like, if anybody has any questions about that.
No, thanks. I just want the files. Thank you.
Okay.
George or Janice, anything?
Nope.
No.
Okay. Chief, we thank you for your presentation, and you can go back to your control panel.
Yeah, I can't go anywhere because I got to stay here, but that's okay. Thanks, guys.
The next thing on our agenda is just to mention next month's meeting. Next week's meeting, which will be March 11th. For those at home, we'll be discussing the solid waste, water enterprise fund, and sewer enterprise fund, and also the senior center and the library presentation.
Right.
And any other departments as we deem necessary between now and next week. So if we have any other business to come before the committee, John.
Nothing else this evening, Mr. Chairman.
Any other comments or anything from the committee? Seeing nothing, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Don't move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
And a third.
Okay, Janice made a motion to adjourn the meeting. Tony made a second. All in favor, please say aye. George Brinkle,
Aye.
Janice Height,
Aye.
Anthony Petit,
Aye.
and myself, Rick Niebuhr, aye. Vote is unanimous to adjourn. Thank you all, and we will see you next week.